Alright, that's what I forgot to do. Ta! Alright. So normally I cut something in the middle of the core so that I'll be able to mount it. And I forgot to do that on that bowl. So I better do it on this one. I'll just cut a recess there so that I can expand my chuck jaws into it to mount the core. There, that should be fine. Alright. Well, getting ahead of myself. I want to mark where my core is going to be cut. 1.25 inches. Again. And the cutter, again, will be in the neighborhood of 3/8 of an inch, not that it really matters, because I'm only taking one core and I don't have to measure for another one. Alright. Right, now put that over here. Okay, so it helps to spray some lubricant on these posts and on the sides of the knife. I'm just using Bostik Top Coat. It's a dry lubricant, dry film. Now, if you haven't seen, there's a video on YouTube. I think it's one of the wood turning guilds filmed one of their a demonstration they had at one of their meetings. I'm not sure if it was Gwinnett Wood Turning Guild or one of the other ones. Gwinnett springs to mind because they quite often have very good demos, but there is a video on YouTube showing a fellow named Dale Bonnertz demonstrating the McNaughton coring system, and he does an excellent job on it. And I have been using it for a while, but I picked up quite a few tips from that video, so, and I've gotten considerably better since I watched that video, so it's definitely worth a watch. But his suggestion for trying to figure out how thick you're leaving the bottom, or going to leave the bottom, is to hold the knife up, sight down into that kerf. Now, to my eye, I'm sighting straight down from the knife into that kerf. Probably doesn't look like it on the camera, but that's what I'm doing. And set the point of the cutter where you want it to finish. And I want it to be right about there. Now, trying to do it in a smooth motion and keeping the arm over that kerf, swing it out and look at what angle that tool handle is pointing. That is your entry angle to get the cutter to the point you want it to be at the end of the cut. you have to enter the face of the blank at that angle. And when you're starting your cut, you want the thicker part of this blade to be between the posts. You don't want the rest right up tight so that you've only got this little wee bit in between the posts. You want the tool rest far enough back so that and I think that is about where I want to be. So I'm going to start my cutting, and I just sharpened this cutter before I cord that other bowl. But there's no possibility of me using the tailstock while I'm doing this. Maybe right at the end I might be able to, but I don't know. And I'm starting up about 300 RPM. And it doesn't require a great deal of pressure. You just want to keep the knife feeding in, and the pressure is along the length of the handle. It's not, I'm not pulling sideways on the handle, I'm along the length, feeding it in. The handle is moving sideways because it's moving between those posts. Let's see. Alright, so I am going to try, I've never tried this before. I'm going to try bringing the tailstock up now that I've got the knife out of the way here. I know the cutter is basically in line with this handle, so when this handle gets pointing directly at the center of the chuck, I know I'm pretty close to breaking through. So that worked all right, having that tailstock here. I've never tried that before. I don't know why. I guess I just thought since I was starting with the knife away over here, there was no way I could use the tailstock. I never thought any more about it. So there's a core using the McNaughton system. So I'll just clean up the inside of this bowl. And measure the bottom. I have a strong tendency to err on the side of caution and wind up with a quite thick bottom. But we'll see how I did once I get this nub cut out of there. Now I'll be able to show you what I'm seeing. Oh my goodness, that's like at least 1.5 inches of bottom thickness there. Well, that's way more than I want. So I'm going to have to take quite a bit out of the bottom there, which means that my core could have been considerably deeper. But, as I said, I tend to err on the side of not spoiling the outside bowl, and that happens quite frequently to me, having 2 inches, or 1.5 inches or 2 inches in the bottom of the bowl that I have to cut away once I've got the core going. I don't think I've removed enough wood there yet, but we'll check it just to be sure. And still got, I could probably take out another 1/2 inch. But I think I'm going to touch up my gouge. Alright, that's more like it. And the curve is alright, so I'm just going to chamfer this corner. And that's ready for sealer. I'm actually surprised that I left that much in the bottom. I have been, the last several that I've done, I've been much closer to my intended bottom thickness than I was on this one. But that is the limitation of the McNaughton system. You're more or less just guessing at how thick you're leaving the bottom. The more you use it, the more experience you have, the better you get to be at guessing, but it's still pretty much a guess. So those are the two cores. And you can see this one here is considerably deeper because I was able to know exactly what I was leaving in thickness, so I could go, with confidence, I could go deeper into the original blank. As I say, I normally would have turned a tenon or a recess there, and I just simply, in the excitement of getting the video going, I simply forgot. So I just have to Alright, so those spurs are back in the holes they were originally in, and I've got this stub which is maybe 1 inch in diameter, so I should be able to eyeball reasonably close. To center on that, and that looks reasonably good to me. It only has to be, it doesn't have to be all that accurate, because any turning I'm going to do is going to be in relation to that center now. It will just change the dimension. If I'm way off on that center, then the bowl will be smaller by the time I get it round. Alright, let's fire this up. Let's just make sure everything's tight. There are the two bowls. I've cored them. This one was cored with the one, or this core was cut with the Oneway Easy Core. This core was cut with the McNaughton system. Both systems work. Both systems work very well. For being able to know with a high degree of confidence how deep you're going into the bowl, the Oneway for certain is it's calculated. You figure it out and you do it. There's no chance involved. There's no guessing. The McNaughton, there is guessing involved, but the more experience you get with it, the better your guesses are going to be. And it's faster to set up and take down, but I'm not sure if the actual cutting is quite as fast. It's close if your cutters are sharp. That didn't take me long to core that bowl out with the McNaughton. It's whatever's more important to you. For me at the time, well, not at the time, I had the McNaughton for a couple of years, and I had cored a few hundred bowls with it probably, but my lathe, well, maybe not a few hundred, maybe 800. But the lathe I had at the time, I had some power issues with it, and it really didn't want... It was a struggle to core using that lathe, and I have a feeling that sort of prejudiced me because I was struggling to core all the time. That sort of influenced my thoughts on the McNaughton system, where the problems I were having were related to the lathe, not to the McNaughton system. So when I was ordering this lathe last fall, or a little better than a year ago now, it was beginning of August that I actually ordered it. I also ordered the Oneway Easy Core system. Now, when the lathe came, I was in the middle of my renovations, so I didn't get much turning time in, and I didn't actually have any big pieces of wood at the time. So it was actually probably March, late March, I think, when I actually got some wood that was big enough to justify coring, and so I have not had nearly as much practice on the Oneway system, but I would say that the learning curve is much shorter with the Oneway, because everything is fixed. Like you measure this, you measure that, you lock everything down, and you go ahead and cut. It's you're going to get the same thing every time. So as long as you keep your cutters sharp and remember to keep feeding the tool rest into the kerf so you don't bend your knife, you should be fine. The McNaughton takes a little practice. A lot of people say you can be more, that it's more versatile, you can cut different shapes with it. I don't know. I can maybe decide whether I want to go deeper into the bowl or shallower or whatever, but I can do that with the other one too. And the curve of the knife determines the curve of the bowl, so I'm not sure whether I go along with that theory, but it's definitely more hands-on, shall we say, more user input. Actually, I had some huge pieces of walnut log here a couple of months ago, and I was making cord sets, 4 bowls from each core, or from each blank. And I'll tell you, by the time I was done, like, doing the coring with the Oneway is so, it almost gets boring after a while, because it's so predictable, and you set it up and you push the handle, you set it up and you push the handle. It's quite predictable, and that's very much a good thing, but as I say, it pretty much gets kind of boring after a while. But I don't have bowls that big every day, so I'm not using it like, or I don't have blanks that big every day, so I'm not using it every day. And I'm just rambling on, and anyway, thank you for watching.